On the heels of weeks of unrest following the killing of Minneapolis man George Floyd at the hands of Derek Chauvin, a now former police officer in the city, and the charging of the three officers that were with him that day, Trump is now in Dallas doing a roundtable discussion on policing and race relations. Ironically, Trump does not relate to other races very well at all. He has a history, an undercurrent of racism since he's been in the White House, from the way he treats Black reporters. You'll remember him telling April Ryan to sit down and shut up. Yamisha Alcindor, the woman who just won an award for her coverage of Trump, he told her she asks terrible questions. Liberal women ask terrible questions. But it's not just that his personal feelings toward Black people. It's that he doesn't even try and hide it anymore. He made this trip today and specifically invited certain people and specifically didn't invite other people. Today, at least 3 members of Congress, Black and Democrat, were not invited to the round table. We're talking about Eddie Bernice Johnson, Mark Vesey, Colin Allred, all of them snubbed by the president. And really, the Dallas County assistant director or assistant district attorney kind of said it best when he said, how is he going to hear from the people today? We are the voices on the ground. So for a little bit on his history of racism, let's go to Sheila.
Yeah, I mean, guys, he's had a long history of racism, going back all the way to the 70s and 80s, where, he was a real estate mogul and he had, several real estate properties. He actually violated the Fair Housing Act by refusing to rent his properties to Black people. There was a time when in one of his casinos, a former employee who happened to be Black claimed that when Trump and his then wife, Ivana, would come onto the casino floor, all of the Black people that were there were told by the bosses that they had to go to the back so that Trump and his wife could, make an appearance. There was the Central Park 5 where there was 4 Black teenagers and a Latin teenager who were accused of raping a white woman who was jogging in Central Park. Trump jumped on that bandwagon, hired a huge ad, said, demanding bring back the death penalty. And even though later on their convictions were vacated, Trump went on the record and said that he still believed that they were guilty. So, fast forwarding to more recent times, there was the Muslim ban. There was him calling Senator Elizabeth Warren multiple times. He's called her Pocahontas. So, I mean, the list goes on and on. This is not like an isolated incident where he just said something that was unsavory, about someone of color. This is like a long history of just examples of him either saying racist things or just by his actions against Black people and other minorities.
It almost seems, in fact, like it's gotten worse since he's been in the White House. It was unthinkable just a few years ago that we would ever have a president who called the Nazis in Charlottesville during the Unite the Right rally very fine people on both sides. There's no debate there. There's Nazis and there's everyone else. But people do pick up on exactly what Trump is talking about, especially on social media. What have you been reading about it on Twitter, Conover?
Well, I just picked up on Noel Kassler's tweet, and we've covered him a lot on Political Tribune. He's given us a lot of insight, and it's worth noting that he signed an NDA when he worked 6 seasons on The Apprentice, and all the information that he's unleashed about Trump. Trump likes a lawsuit. He loves to sue, and he hasn't tried to silence him. So he must have the goods on him. He's told us about Trump's inappropriate behavior with his daughter, even that he wears a girdle, Trump being with Epstein's victims, that he's lazy. And he just tweeted Anyone notice how pissed off Trump looked yesterday, having to sit at the table with black leaders? He hates being in their presence and would like that, and made that known by using racial slurs to describe them. Kwame Jackson and Holly Robinson Pete, both called the N-word. And apparently that was on the set of The Apprentice because they both appeared on that.
That is absolutely disgusting. You would think someone who is so practiced at being on a national stage would be a little better at kind of guarding his speech. In fact, now it seems more important than ever when he needs massive donors in order to run this 2020 presidential campaign. Or maybe the kind of people he's looking for money from are the kind of people who want to hear this talk. What do you think, Andrea?
Guys, in the end, we all know that Donald Trump cares more about his donors than anything else. We can't really think for a second here that Trump didn't have some self-serving motives behind this trip. Ultimately, it looks like this whole outing was a whole lot less about discussing race issues and policing and a lot more about the massive campaign dinner he's got on the schedule this evening. The Dallas Morning News actually has reported that Trump is leaving the roundtable discussion and heading over to a $10 million campaign dinner with 24 of some of his biggest donors, all of whom will be forking over a startling minimum of $580,600 per individual for nothing more than an undoubtedly disgusting meal and a souvenir photo. And guys, let's not forget that Trump is once again skirting campaign laws here by using the roundtable discussion to pretty much push the bill for this entire trip onto the American taxpayers. When we can pretty well rest assured that he'll be spending a significantly larger block of time with his rich white donors than he will be at the roundtable discussion on race and policing issues. Because even if he did manage to skirt around inviting any of the people of color to the discussion, like you had mentioned, Andrew, we all know good and well that Donald Trump is never keen on protecting people of color or minorities from dying in the streets, like we've just seen with George Floyd, or in their beds, like we've just seen with Breonna Taylor, especially not at the expense of the police force that is continually protecting him right now.
It's absolutely right. You know, as we wrap this up, all I can say is I'm glad I'm not paying $500,000 for a well-done steak with ketchup. It's hard to imagine even being in the same room with that guy, but we'll see how the roundtable goes today, and we'll probably have more for you on it later. If you want to pick up on more shows, more news from us, you can follow us at politicaltribune.org. Right when you get to the site, there's going to be a pop-up asking you to subscribe to our posts, or you can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/politicaltribunemedia, all one word. It's super easy to find. We're in groups, we're on pages, we're easy to get along with. We'll see you guys in the next episode. Thanks, everyone.